Masugo and Yui have decided to date in secret, keeping their relationship hidden from their co-workers. Coincidentally, the topic of office romance comes up in Masugo's department. When asked for his opinion, he says he doesn't think it's something people should be doing. His co-workers argue that sneaking around makes it even more exciting, that for a couple in love, secrecy isn't a deterrent, but fuel, like a play. Masugo insists that makes it an even bigger no for him, though he's obviously lying through his teeth. Right then, his girlfriend arrives. She's from another department and has come to complain about something. She acts so aggressively toward him that his co-workers tell him he should try to get along with her better. Back at home, Yui apologizes with a bright smile for being so mean to him at work, explaining that it was all an act. Masugo admits he thought she was about to break up with him. She reassures him, saying that since they only recently started dating, she's unsure how to behave around him at work. Among their colleagues, they have a reputation for constantly bickering like cats and dogs, but in reality, they had feelings for each other all along, and after a lot of secret back and forth, they finally became a couple. For now, they've decided to keep their relationship under wraps. Even so, Masugo wants them to at least talk normally at work without fighting. However, Yui refuses, saying that if she doesn't hold back, everyone will figure it out, because she can't hide her feelings. As for why they're keeping it a secret, it's to avoid workplace complications, potential personnel changes, and unwanted rumors. Masugo also doesn't want Yui to become the subject of vulgar fantasies. After that, the busy season begins, and every department is swamped with work. Masugo and Yui try their best to find time to meet, but it's difficult, especially since Yui is now banned from Masugo's department due to her habit of being rude whenever she visits. As a result, they go an entire week without seeing each other. Their first encounter in days happens in the elevator. A co-worker, noticing their usual tension, tries to get them to get along. Yui, instead of being outright rude, starts acting like a tsundere. The co-worker even picks up on this and teases her, saying she's just being shy because Masugo complimented her. Meanwhile, Masugo worries that she's being way too obvious. People are bound to notice. And sure enough, the co-worker does sense that they actually get along better than they let on. Once she leaves and the elevator gets more crowded, Masugo and Yui discreetly hold hands and lean into each other, calling it their way of recharging after all the stress from work. When the busy season finally ends, they decide to go see a movie together. While planning their date, they also agree to start calling each other by their first names when they're alone. After all, they've been dating for almost a month now. However, when Masugo calls her Yui for the first time, she gets extremely embarrassed, even though it was her idea. She's so flustered that she can't bring herself to call him by his first name in return. Masugo understands, though, since they've spent the past 6 years addressing each other by their last names at work. At the theater, the movie turns out to be a bit scary, and Yui instinctively grabs Masugo's hand. This makes him wonder why that doesn't embarrass her when simply hearing her name does. When they leave the cinema, they run into an old work acquaintance, Seiya, one of the instructors who helped them when they were new, and also Yui's senior from university. Seiya invites them out for a meal to celebrate their unexpected reunion. During dinner, Masugo starts reminiscing about how their co-workers used to speculate that there was something special between Yui and Seiya, even wondering if they were dating. The conversation flows normally, but Masugo finds himself getting more and more annoyed by Seiya. At some point, he starts thinking that it wouldn't really matter if Seiya found out about their relationship, since he works at a different branch. Just as he's about to say that Yui is special to him, he notices her gripping his shirt, trembling slightly, clearly nervous about Seiya discovering their secret. But it seems their efforts were in vain. As Seiya bids them farewell, he apologizes for interrupting and gives them a knowing wink. He probably figured it out. On the way home, Yui thanks Masugo, finally calling him by his first name. He smirks, saying it took her long enough, especially since she had no problem calling Seiya by his first name. Panicked, she hurriedly explains that it was only because 4 people at her university had the same last name. Masugo chuckles, saying he was just teasing, then leans in for a kiss, but Yui covers his mouth with her hand, still flustered from nearly getting caught earlier. Amused, he suggests they continue at his place instead, and continue they do. That night, they seal the deal. The next morning, Yui is utterly embarrassed. She called his name so many times last night that it keeps replaying in her head. Since she stayed at his place overnight, Yui ends up wearing the same clothes the next day. But it's not a problem. She has a change of clothes in her locker, so as long as no one from her department sees her, she should be fine. To be extra cautious, they decide to take different trains at the station. It turns out to be the right call, as Masugu runs into a co-worker on his train. She recently moved near that station. In the end, everything goes smoothly, and Yui manages to change before anyone notices. One day, they head to work separately as usual, but by chance they run into each other. They take it as a stroke of luck and are secretly happy, though they still pretend to dislike each other as always. Now, as of late, Yui has been busy with a long-term project in her department, so their interactions are brief. We see them meeting up a few times, going out for drinks at night or having dinner at Masugu's place. One evening after dinner, Yui gives him a shoulder massage. She's being especially considerate because she saw him doing some heavy lifting earlier that day and has been resisting the urge to touch him ever since. But she quickly adds that once she's done, it'll be his turn to return the favor. Several days later, one of Masugu's co-workers invites him and another girl out for drinks. He accepts since Yui had already told him she'd be going out with her co-workers as well. And what do you know? They all end up at the same place and decide to drink together. For some reason, Yui goes wild, drinking like there's no tomorrow. We learn that Yui has been trying to talk to a new transfer named Some, who recently joined her department. Since he's really shy, she wants to help him integrate, which is the only reason he agreed to come out that night. Now, as I mentioned, Yui has been drinking a lot, so when Masugu sees her get up and start walking unsteadily, he gets worried and follows her toward the bathroom. Sure enough, she's feeling awful but doesn't want to make a scene. Maybe it's the alcohol, but she suddenly gets really lovey-dovey with Masugu until she eventually falls asleep on his shoulder. And then it happens. Some steps out of one of the bathrooms. He had been there the whole time, trying to wait until they left so he wouldn't embarrass them. But they took too long. Bottom line, he's just found out their secret. The next day, Yui learns about the whole thing and immediately starts plotting ways to take Some down. Masugu has to calm her down, assuring her that Some doesn't seem like the type to spread rumors. Even so, Yui worries he might accidentally let it slip. Masugu reassures her once more before going to talk to Some himself. Masugu asks him to keep their relationship a secret. Some, confused, asks why they're even hiding it in the first place. It's not like office relationships are forbidden. Masugu explains that they want to keep their personal lives separate from their work selves. Some takes that to mean that since there's no guarantee they'll get married, a breakup could make things awkward if everyone knew. In the end, he promises to keep quiet because he owes a lot to Yui. After their conversation, one word keeps echoing in Masugu's mind: marriage. He starts picturing that happy day, realizing just how much he wants to keep walking beside Yui, day after day, for the rest of his life. A little later, Yui is in a meeting with her team discussing the design for their new product on social media. The higher-ups are pushing for something classic, but Yui disagrees, arguing that if they don't take risks and try new things, they'll fall behind their competitors. Her co-workers point out that many people favor a classic approach, including Some, who believes a simpler design might be better. Although Yui can't stop thinking about the fact that Some knows about her relationship, she remains professional and assures the team that she'll take everyone's opinions into consideration. That night, Yui meets with Masugu again, this time at her apartment. He arrives a bit late because he stopped to pick up the donuts she wanted to try. Upon entering, he's surprised by how many rabbit plushes she has. There are even more than the last time he visited. Her room is overflowing with the things she loves, creating an atmosphere that feels completely different from his own minimalist space. So he can't quite feel at ease there. Yui then brings out some coffee to pair with the donuts, and they start eating. She's delighted with the treat, her adorable expressions captivating Masugu, who never gets tired of watching her reactions. He asks if she's always loved sweets this much. She admits she has, but her passion for them grew even more after joining the company. She began exploring new treats, trying out recommendations from others, and discovering so many delicious options that she couldn't stop wanting to try more. Lately, she's been relying on social media for recommendations, but one of his co-workers knows far more about sweets than she does. She admits she's still in the process of falling deeper and deeper in love with them. Then she asks if he likes donuts. He replies that he doesn't particularly care for them, he just bought them for her. Yui often shares the things she enjoys and what makes her happy, and the more Masugu learns about her, the more curious he becomes about her interests. Gradually, he finds himself noticing things he never paid attention to before. Ultimately, he tells her he likes donuts as much as she does. Hearing that, she lights up with joy and kisses him passionately. She tells him his expression just now was so cute, it made her realize how much he loves him. In his mind, Masugu reflects that the more he gets to know her, the more he likes her, and he can't help but want to learn even more. Then they begin chatting about their day, and Yui mentions that she still feels a bit nervous talking to Some. Masugu reassures her, saying that Some is a good guy and has promised not to reveal anything, so she shouldn't worry. But Yui can't help it, especially after noticing Masugu blushing while talking about Some. Of course, she doesn't realize that Masugu was just recalling the time Some brought up marriage. Yui wonders how much Some actually knows about their relationship, and it makes her even more anxious since he keeps everything to himself. Later, her co-workers start discussing product packaging, particularly the design of the donuts Masugu had bought. Yui begins to share how a friend brought some donuts to her place but suddenly freezes, realizing that Some might guess it was actually Masugu. Quickly, she tries to cover it up by emphasizing that her friend is a girl. Some notices her awkward attempt to deflect, but he genuinely doesn't care. Observing her clumsiness, he thinks to himself that Yui is even more scatterbrained than he initially thought. Feeling exasperated, he wonders why she keeps hovering around him when he's already promised to keep their secret. To make matters worse for both of them, their other co-workers leave the room, forcing Yui and Some to work alone on some documents. Yui tries to make small talk, but since Some is an introvert, he responds with short answers. Then, out of the blue, he asks if she doesn't trust him at all. Caught off guard, Yui doesn't respond right away, taking a moment to compose herself. When she finally speaks, she assures him that she wasn't doubting him. It's just that this is the first time she's been in a situation like this, and it's left her feeling a bit shaken. She apologizes for being such a pathetic senior. Some responds by saying, "Maybe this is what Masugu was talking about." Yui immediately panics, asking what Masugu said and what they talked about. Some calmly replies that he's saying this for her benefit. If she's that obvious, everyone's going to figure it out, and it won't be his fault. Yui has no choice but to agree. That same day, Masugu is sent to the accounting department's archives building to retrieve something. As he's leaving, he hears a loud crash in a nearby room. When he checks, he finds Yui surrounded by a pile of falling items. Apparently, the planning department's archives are a complete mess, and she explains that a notice was sent out requiring the room to be urgently cleaned. Yui insists that he doesn't need to help her, but Masugu refuses to leave her alone, so they start tidying up together. As they work, Yui begins to get carried away, chatting excitedly with Masugu. However, she quickly catches herself and switches back to work mode, reminding herself of the rule to act like rivals at work, even though no one is around to see them. At one point, Yui asks him to hold the step ladder while she climbs up. As he does, Masugu realizes he can see under her skirt. He's relieved it was him who found her, thinking about how defenseless she is in moments like this. He tells her he'll handle it since she's wearing a skirt today. Embarrassed, she nearly loses her balance, but he catches her safely. They end up close and it seems like they're about to kiss, but of course that's when her co-workers arrive unexpectedly. Their meeting ended early, so they decided to help with the cleanup. However, they don't find anyone because Masugu and Yui have hidden in the back. The co-workers begin looking for Yui, knowing she should be there. Masugu is desperate, silently wishing her co-workers would hurry up and leave, as there's no way to explain the compromising position they're in. He's also worried they might accidentally knock something over. He wonders if this situation is the consequence of getting too cocky at work. At that moment, for some reason, Yui tells him it's fine to move a bit closer, and he does. Meanwhile, her co-workers wonder whether Yui has already finished cleaning since everything seems tidied up. However, they notice the door was still unlocked. In the end, they conclude she must have left already and decide to head back to their department. Once they're alone again, Yui and Masugu reflect on the situation and agree that they need to stick to the rules, even when no one else is around. Several days later, one of Masugu's co-workers mentions she got tickets for 3 consecutive nights of baseball games. She says she has 7 tickets and invites people from Yui's department to join. Naturally, Masugu and Yui end up sitting together. Masugu feels thrilled, thinking that going to a baseball game with his girlfriend is the best. It's the kind of date he's always dreamed of. However, he quickly reminds himself of the rules they agreed to follow and the fact that they're not alone. Even so, they can't help but talk during the game. Yui starts asking questions about the rules, and they celebrate the runs together. Later, when they go to get food for everyone, Yui confesses that she doesn't know much about baseball. However, she admits she was aware that he likes it. Still, today's the first time she's realized just how much he loves it. As they walk back to their seats, they hold hands. Yui asks if he's a bit drunk, and Masuko replies that she probably is too. Still, he says it's fine, it's just for that day. When they arrive, a great home run is scored, and in his excitement, he hugs her to celebrate. Just then, one of their co-workers, who's also drunk, hugs them from behind, cheerfully welcoming them back. Once they're back in their seats, Yui leans in and whispers into Masuko's ear that they should come alone next time.